Welcome, everyone. Good to see your faces, those who are on Zoom. So, what shall we talk about today? What more is there besides God's love? If only God exists, then why do anything else? One could ask. A valid question. And you don't have to. The highest focus is that only God exists. It is the highest focus, to see the Creator in everything. However, I know humans a little bit, at least since this incarnation. I've had the privilege of knowing what it's like. And so I can say that it's out of the ordinary to find someone who actually will and wants to dedicate their focus solely and exclusively to the realization, the recognition of the one infinite Creator in all things. There is a tendency or desire, and this is neither bad nor good per se, but it's quite natural, to explore variety, to explore the realm of possibilities, which is also a part of the Creator's curiosity about itself. And so, in so doing, in so feeling excited about the exploration, about the adventure, about the discovery, about the process of crystallization, of becoming, we are also then fulfilling the Creator's wish for why it created creation, for why it began hallucinating, which is what the world is. It's a very profound hallucination. Very empty, but very profound. Empty of substance, ultimately. Nevertheless, very real appearing. Magical display. A magical display of awareness, just like your dream at night. But just because something is an illusion doesn't mean it lacks relevance. Often in these kinds of teachings that take a more black or white approach, a more extreme approach to ego versus enlightenment, illusion versus reality, although they have a power and potency to them when practiced because of their non-concessional nature, their black or white approach can be powerful. However, most human beings are not fully able to integrate that properly without causing distortions and imbalances and bypassing and so forth. So for me, having explored what it's like to be human for 34 years, I think a more balanced approach would be more appropriate for the majority of people, especially Westerners. And so here we are. Plus, there's a great power in harnessing the power of God's creative capacity to hallucinate and allowing that to bend to the true desires that are calling you forth into your next level version of yourself. To allow space and time to warp around, you could say your will, although your will should be understood to be that deeper, truer desire that's calling you forth into your next level evolution, which also aids you in your spiritual awakening, expansion, ascension, peace, so forth. That being said, the flavor of today is going to be slightly different than yesterday. And so I just want to ensure that everyone listening right now knows that you have full permission and full encouragement if you feel like it, to simply recognize the Creator and all that is, and in a sense, not play too much with what we're doing today. You don't have to. If that suffices for you, if that's enough, if that fills your whole day up, so to speak, if that fills your cup, then by all means, recognize God and all that is, and you're set. You're good to go. All right, so it is a very complete practice to recognize the one in all things, to know that only God is, to deepen that, to make that from physical to subtle to causal to being it. Nevertheless, the following tool set can be extremely helpful and useful to the relational-based, dual-based human mind. And it can actually also align you more powerfully, more consistently, more transparently to God's love. So it does work in a complementary way. All right, the premise of all this, of what I'm about to share, the methods, the approach, the attitude, the understanding. First, we have to lay down some context, some groundwork, some basic mechanical understanding. Because the idea or concept of living in the state in which you feel that your destiny is fulfilled is a very powerful state. It conjures up feelings of invincibility, of great power, and therefore great love. Also, like I said yesterday, with great power actually comes great love. True power. I'm not talking about manipulation of others, because that's not an indication of feeling powerful. It's an indication of feeling lack of power, right? So power should not be seen through a negative lens. True power is what's needed. We're all seeking for power. We're all like appliances, like toasters and radiators and light bulbs, seeking for power because we want to shine, because we want to function, because we want to radiate heat, because we want to make toast, right? So the toaster is looking for the power. That is our whole search. We are all searching for that one power, that source of power. And so if we have a negative idea about power, then we're contradicting ourselves and we're slowing down our process. We need to embrace power. We need to embrace the fact that we're all looking for power. We're just doing it in different ways. And we're doing it in distorted ways. And we're doing it in indirect ways. And we're looking for it in the wrong places, in the wrong times, in the wrong ways. But essentially what everyone's seeking is power. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that is as it's supposed to be. God is all powerful. It is energy. It is power. It is love. Love is power. So again, kind of loosen up the idea that power has anything to do with controlling conditions or controlling outcome or controlling people or controlling other people's free will. True power has nothing to do with that. In fact, those are all the result of people seeking power, but in the wrong ways, not finding it. Those who have found true power naturally abstain from distorted practices, such as the ones I just mentioned. But in our society, we've attributed the word power to the wrong things. Actually, it's powerlessness. When you see someone dominate someone else, or controlling, or lying, or manipulating, in order to create some kind of an outcome, some kind of satisfaction, it is that they're seeking for power. They're not having it yet. Those who have true power don't need to exercise it on anybody. Does that make sense? Okay, so I just want you to be clear on when I use the word power, it's in a holistic, God-loving fashion. And when we are fulfilled, that is powerful. When we are self-fulfilled, self-satisfied, that is powerful. And again, when you feel that freedom, when you feel that satisfaction, love is automatic because you overflow. You know, we only do these distorted things if we believe we're lacking something. Now, one of the most powerful states for your consciousness to abide in, to tune into, is the state of your destiny accomplished. And this is a timeless understanding that I want to bring about. That's why we need to lay down some groundwork, some metaphysical groundwork. You're already familiar to some degree, at least because of yesterday, and some of you who've been part of this sort of work for a longer period of time are more familiar with it through different angles. But you're familiar with the timeless level of yourself, which we could call awareness or the I am or God. And it's kind of like the center of a wheel, if you want. And the spokes of the wheel represent the different stages of time, the different ages of your body, the different periods of your life. And they all revolve around a timeless center. Now, from the empty center, every time exists simultaneously right now. It's only when that timeless consciousness is projected into one of the spokes of the wheel that it now has the point of view inside of a linear 3D type of experience. And so the past seems to have come and gone, and the future seems to not yet be here. But you have to understand that from a timeless point of view, all things already exist. So in this sense, creation is complete, structurally, but not relationally. And this is what I want to explain to you. So try to come at this topic from the understanding of a timeless space, or spaceless, timeless space. A reality before time began. You could imagine it that way if you want. The same space that existed prior to the Big Bang, which remains unaffected as if nothing ever happened after the Big Crunch, after everything is reabsorbed back into that one infinite absolute. That absolute center, which has no center, but we got to use some language. So that absolute center knows no time. An entire universe of billions of years will have gone by, and it's as if nothing ever happened. Because it's timeless, you see. It only appears from our linearly inserted points of view of consciousness, where we're projecting our consciousness into space and time and objects and bodies and relationships and days and nights and weeks and months. That time appears to be something that moves, but it's not. Time does not exist. So picture it, if you will. You could use the analogy of the wheel with the different spokes. Each spoke represents another moment in your linear life. But again, from the center, all spokes coexist simultaneously. Future, past, what you call your present. But from that center, it's all present, you see. All there is the present. It's a timeless present. Now, when we learn about like the power of the present moment, often our minds perceive that as being a really thin slice out of this sort of block of cheese, goat cheese maybe, where the past is past, the future is yet to come, and the very slice here in the center that we're experiencing right now, this is the present moment. But that's not really how it works. When you dissolve into the present moment becomes everything. Which means that actually there is no present moment, because there's no future, there's no past, and so forth. There only is now. The now is not a slice inside or in between the past and the future. The now is a timeless now. The past has never occurred. The future will never happen. These do not exist. Therefore, the now does not exist. What you call the now is a concept used to convey to your conditioned, time-conditioned mind that you should focus on what's here now. But you've never not been focused on what's here now. You might be thinking about the future, but that's what you're focused on here now. You've only ever been coming from this timeless present center, and it will never ever reach the future, and it will never ever have a past. Therefore, it's redundant to call it the present. So the present also does not exist. Past, future, present, therefore time does not exist. What exists is that which is, and only God is, and God is timeless. And within this infinite capacity of God, there's a hallucination that appears, that occurs. And when you're hallucinating one picture, and then you're hallucinating another configuration of possibilities, and another configuration of what's possible, and a slightly different configuration of subatomic configurations of particles, you're continuously reimagining that in a timeless existence. But it will begin to appear as you develop a relationship to what you perceive, to what you're projecting, to what you're imagining, to what you're hallucinating. You will begin to develop and hallucinate an additional creation, which is a sensation of time, an imagined sensation of time. That is the result of imagining a picture now, and then another picture now that looks very similar to the previous one, except your finger is in a slightly different position. And then you're imagining one where your finger is even more slightly in a different position, and this little until it seems that there is this solid body that's moving through an actual space-time, and we forget that actually billions of times every second we're imagining a different configuration of possibilities into a timeless space. Structurally speaking, thus then, time does not have any existence. It is completely a result of imagination. It's imagined in response to what you're imagining. You're imagining this, now this, now this, and then because of that, you're imagining that time exists. So it's a reaction to continuous imagination. So we could say, okay, change. We could say change is sort of a thing. You can change what you perceive. And because of that change, we've called it time, and we imagined that there is the existence of time. But you cannot prove the existence of time anywhere. You've never experienced time. Think about it. When have you last experienced time? Time itself. When have you ever experienced time? You've never experienced time passing by. Never. What does it look like? Like, can you put it in your pocket? Can you hand a piece of it to me? Give me a chunk of time. You've never experienced time. You've just labeled something time. You've just not seen clearly. You've been deluded by your own assumptions of what's happening. But you've never experienced time, and you never will. You will only ever experience what you're presently imagining, what you're presently conscious of, what you're presently experiencing. But time is a complete assumption. It's a complete agreement. It's a concept that we made up. In the actual directness of perception, time disappears. And this is what people begin to experience when they start meditating. But you can understand it too. Actually, you've never experienced time. You can deconstruct that illusion, that assumption. So, in addition to the wheel analogy, I want to give you another image, another analogy for this, yeah? And I might just draw it on the whiteboard. Quick test. Are we good? Working? All right, cool. So if this is you, this white piece of paper, if this is the timeless God state, if this is awareness, pure naked being, prior to any projection of form, label, before you give any description to anything, before you develop any imaginal relationship between objects, just pure being. For instance, when for 2 to 5 seconds you give away all thoughts, you just stop thinking as best you can. This is a practice, but you can get better at it. I can stop thinking at will, and in a sense you could say I'm never really thinking, I'm just kind of observing what's flowing through. But after a while you can stop the universe. You can stop space, you can stop time, you can stop the experience of the world, until all that remains is that indescribable essence of being, the nature of reality, God. So that's you, before all the stuff, before all the imagination. And now let's say that originally, let's say at the moment of the Big Bang, creation was complete. The one infinite creator, that one infinite source, decided to express itself, to explore itself, to experience itself, to get to know itself through an infinite number of new ways, new angles, new approaches, new journeys, new illusions, because it wants to learn about itself. It wants to explore its potential. It wants to give a voice to infinity. And how do you do that? Through infinite possible illusions. So reality expresses itself through illusion. Doesn't mean it's not relevant because it chose to produce illusion. So there must be relevance and validity to it. It just means it's not real. Doesn't mean it's not valid or relevant. Very different. It's just not what it seems to be. So this is you. This is God. And now there's the Big Bang. And out of infinite infinity, all that could ever be, every possible configuration of what we perhaps would call electromagnetic configurations or subatomic particles and so forth, which is also illusory in the end. But every configuration of what's possible now exists because it's timeless. There's no time. There is change, there's learning, there's growth, there's relationship, there's evolution. But structurally speaking, all the buildings, all the blocks in the building already exist. So if we then bring this down to a more personal level, so your individuated life. So here you are incarnate on earth as a person, as a being. And let's say that currently you are projecting your consciousness to be here. So this is, right now you're listening to me, for instance, right? On this talk. So this is you listening to me. This is your present experience. Because your consciousness, your formless self, your formless consciousness is projecting itself into this particular space-time focal point, you're going to have this experience now. However, from your true self's point of view, and so forth, you get the point. So if you were to project yourself here, you would actually be aware of a different timeline, a different frame, a different parallel picture that coexists to this one. So this is where the idea of parallel realities comes in. That actually, since this universe is timeless structurally, since time has never been discovered to exist, it's a complete agreement, an illusion. All these things that already exist, all possibilities, all possible manifestations already exist. It's just that they're not, you could say, alive. But in this infinite potential, everything already exists, meaning you cannot do anything with your physical consciousness to create anything new. You cannot, and it's similar actually to, on a very physical level, like there's nothing we can create that doesn't already exist. We need to use the substances of earth in order to build a house, in order to build a car, in order to build whatever it is, a shopping mall, an airport, clothing. So even Coca-Cola is made of the things found on earth, right? So all components, it's a bit of a flawed analogy, but to some degree it works, that you cannot create anything new. You can make new relationships, but everything that we see around us already existed. It's just been manipulated in different ways. Relationships have been created in different ways between those components to generate something that appears to be new. If we take this to a more absolute level, then literally every configuration of anything you've ever done, ever will do, ever could do, already exists. And your imagination is your tool to connect to that. Imagination is not just you in this real reality daydreaming about things that don't exist. No, imagination is let's say you're daydreaming. So you're sitting here in this classroom and you're listening to me, but you're not really. Maybe you're a little tired or sleepy or you're distracted. And you start daydreaming. What's actually happening is your consciousness is contacting some other parallel reality. You interpret that as imagination or daydreaming because you're so associated with this particular picture that you've called this reality. But imagination is actually consciousness tuning into, shifting its vibration to where you're not as aware of your physical sensations in this particular moment, and you're more aware of your non-physical or parallel experiences. And so you're tuning in like a radio in your car tuned into a different frequency. It will hear a different song. It will play a different station. But all stations coexist. Just because you tune into one doesn't mean the other stations cease to be. If you tune into another one, then you're becoming aware of that one. That becomes your audible reality in the vehicle, in the car. But it doesn't mean the others stop existing. So we're just like that. Our consciousness is like a tuning fork, and we're constantly tuning ourselves to a particular reality. And imagination is what label we've given to that innate capacity of consciousness to change its dial, to turn itself to a different frequency. But all realities already coexist simultaneously in this timeless, vast expanse. That's why we say creation is complete. Now, then again, the linear human mind, the black or white thinking human mind will go, well, then what's the point? Or what's the purpose? Or why do anything if I cannot create anything new? If my future already exists? Well, it's not that your future is already determined in terms of which one you're going to experience. It's simply that all your possible futures, what you call future, simply means parallel coexistent moments of now, because everything is here and now. Everything exists here and now, always, timelessly. Your future is determined. What you experience, what you will bring into your now moment is determined by what you are vibrationally attuned to, what you are in consciousness, in imagination, in your conviction, in your belief system, what you are attuned to. Therefore, believing does turn into seeing. Seeing is believing simply means I'm seeing this, so I'm going to continue to believe this, so I'm going to stay in this particular paradigm of reality. I'm going to stay there and 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 observe it and stay there and say it's true and stay there and believe in it because I see it with my senses, therefore it's true. And I'm going to call imagination delusion and not appreciate this God-given gift to shift my reality, to bring a different picture into focus whenever I want to. And so I feel like a victim because this is the way it works and this is the way it is and it just happens. And I have no free will in this matter and life is already set for me. That's the victim state. But if we reappreciate our God-given right and capacity to create worlds, to change what we perceive based on using our consciousness, our state of consciousness, you can also call these states. Or you could say that these pictures are all manifestations that respond to a particular state of consciousness. And each state will produce, each state of vibration, each state of consciousness, each state of conviction, of assumption, of belief, will bring forth into your conscious focus a physicalized reality that will be a match to the state that you believe most in, that you are most anchored in. So I hope this makes sense as a basic outline. I can go into it in more detail, but for now, this is what comes to mind. And then, basically, what I want you to be able to do after today, I want you to be able to identify out of the infinite states, and each state will come eventually with a manifestation, a manifest experience, where you'll have a bodily space-time manifest experience that is commensurate with the state of consciousness that you've embodied non-physically in your consciousness, in your imagination, in your feeling state. And so I want you to find the state of consciousness, be able to identify the state of consciousness that's particularly powerful, which is, and it's very broad also, which makes it powerful because you can apply it all the time. It doesn't matter what's going on. And that is the state of your destiny fulfilled. So I'll go back over there and I'll see you on the other camera. So the state of your destiny fulfilled. Now, this implies that you have a destiny, which I believe you do. So then what is destiny? Destiny is not a solid thing, okay? It's not a set thing. It is very flexible. However, when you came into this life, you had an intention. Beyond the intention, you also had a hope. Most people will never fully fulfill that hope. It's an unrealistic hope that your soul knows it has, but it still hopes for it. But it knows it's unrealistic. It knows it's not probable, but it's ever possible. So your destiny is malleable. It's stretchable. You can fulfill a portion of it. You can fulfill a lot of it. You can step into all of it, which is very rare, almost impossible. But the hope kind of extends itself. The hope that your soul has for this incarnation of what is possible is what you could call your destiny. Now, you have a certain intention to learn certain things, to learn from certain themes, from certain lessons. That's why certain things seem to consistently be part of your life. You have certain thematic experiences. Part of that is due to your current conscious vibration, the beliefs that you've picked up during this incarnation and that you continue to believe in and insist upon and so forth. But there's another component to why certain things show up in your life, and that is because you want to learn certain particular balances, lessons, nuances, and understandings. You want to have certain realizations for yourself. Your soul, in a sense, wants to balance itself out by gaining these particular experiences, those types of relationships, attract those types of lessons, and so forth. So there's sort of a co-orchestration going on here between your physical mind, if you will, and your higher mind or your higher self or your soul. But there is a blueprint that you have that you come in with. Everybody does. A blueprint of potential, a blueprint of possibilities, a blueprint of hope, a blueprint of probabilities. The most probable sort of routes that you'll be likely to take or be attracted to. Things that excite you, things that you will desire, things that you want to learn and that you'll get into during this lifetime, most probably. And you've helped yourself by setting up certain life events early on, like where you were born, who you were born to, and your early childhood life circumstances and so forth. A lot of that is sort of predetermined and pre-planned by you in order to set the stage for your free will to then learn more and more on its own, but in tandem with, in guidance with that blueprint, okay? So you're not just born pell-mell with no sort of structure or guidance or trajectory in place. You do have a direction, and this is what you can tap into as your calling or as your sense of destiny, okay? And as a child, most children that I observe have this sense of destiny more active to some degree. And typically this translates in certain archetypes, certain things that they idolize or just kind of fall in love with, like superheroes and stuff like that. You know, or particular movies or particular even career options or jobs. Or I remember I was crazy about becoming a jet fighter pilot. I really wanted to become a jet fighter pilot, like more than anything. When I was like 10, 11 years old, my whole room was filled with different pictures. I knew all the names of the different jet fighters. And so there was like such a strong impulse, but it represented something. And the reason that I didn't was because I realized at some point, well, I might have to kill some other dude that is also wanting to fly jets. and then I had to face, well, could I really, really do that? And I was like, no, I couldn't. Shit. So I had to give up on my dream because I was too nice. But it was representative of something. I also always wanted to be Superman when I was even younger. And well, actually still. So that one never left me. So like I was crazy about Superman, you know, just like the nobility and the power of flight and the invincibility. And so you can see a lot of that archetype still playing itself out in my life or in like the way I teach and what I've come to discover and so forth. So kids, you included, if you can remember, have an internal sense of destiny, an internal compass of all things are possible and something great awaits me, something exciting, something adventurous, something that's never been done before awaits me. I want to explore something new. I want to explore something of a specific nature, a specific frequency. I want to chase, I want to become a certain feeling, a certain being. So if you can remember what that was like, it can be very helpful for this exercise. Now, you don't have to know exactly what it is, because for me, it wasn't actually flying a jet, for instance. That was just symbolic. That was just archetypical. And I will never be Superman, because Superman is a comic book character, in case you guys didn't know. So it's kind of impractical, but it represented something, right? So similar for you, you don't have to know exactly how it's going to unfold and what it's going to look like. But if you can tap into this sense of destiny, of who you are here to be, and that can be as simple as being a vessel for God's love. It can be very simple. It can be being just having a family and living your life, or even being by yourself in the woods. It doesn't have to look like anything in the public eye, per se. It doesn't have to be a certain career or a certain special manifestation that nobody else has ever done before, or inventing something new, or being king of a country, or it doesn't have to be anything along those lines. It can be your life as it looks right now. Of course, things will continue to change as you shift your consciousness. It will take on a brighter and lighter and more empowering and more epic form. However, it can be very, what humans would call, simple or mundane. It doesn't have to be special in the Superman kind of way, but it could be. But what I do want you to tune into is the essence of it, because it does excite you. It will excite you when you feel it, as much as it excited me to become Superman one day. Does this make sense? So I want you to get in touch with your innermost sense of destiny, this secret little dream that you've suppressed to some degree because it's not realistic, because this is the way the world works, or this is what people will accept me to be, and this is what they won't accept me to be, and this is how the laws work, and so forth. Because of those limiting ideas, you've kind of suppressed it, and you've become a realist to a greater or lesser extent, which has been one of the biggest mistakes of your life. And it's funny how people continuously try to make each other realistic. Like, people still try it with me, like publicly. They still don't like that I'm not realistic. So, but I mean, let them try, right? So don't be realistic. It's one of the worst mistakes you could ever make. It's soul corrupting, and it's other self hurting. You're hurting other people by doing it to yourself. It's a virus that spreads. It's the virus of cynicism. It's the virus of Thomas Newton. It's the virus of skepticism. Skepticism, when taken blindly, when done from a sense of cynicism, from a sense of negativity, from a sense of things are the way they are, and nothing else is possible. So if skepticism is combined with a true sort of imaginative power to dream and to believe in infinite possibilities being ultimately possible, you just got to find a way, then it can be somewhat healthy. But typically what people call healthy skepticism is just a justification for staying where they're at and being afraid and staying within a limited paradigm that they believe is true. So fair enough, if you believe that is all there is to life, then that will just seem realistic to you. But from the soul's point of view, it's the biggest suppressor. It has a corruptive, corrosive energy to the joy of the child. Now, of course, within skepticism, you can experience some measure of joy as well, but it does cap it. Skepticism, cynicism, realism, scientificness only focused on 3D instrumentation, all that sort of atheistic nonsense is very limiting. It will cap your sense of spirit. It will cap your contact with God. It will limit it, okay? So I just want to give that to you. Feel free to do with that as you please. Feel free to be offended also, if you want. That's a valid choice. And but when it comes to your destiny has very little to do with realism. If you come up with your, I think this is my destiny, and it's like, And for some people, this may actually be true, right? So don't use this example extremely. But if your childhood dream destiny is to become a lawyer, then I think 9 out of 10 people are fooling themselves, and 1 out of 10 people, that is actually their dream. So I don't mean any offense by this. But if your sense of destiny is capped by what you believe is possible and how your parents maybe have trained you about what's good, what's bad, what's honorable, what's not honorable, and so forth, then you're not really in touch with your dream, most likely. Again, exceptions are there. But for most people, when you tap into your destiny, it's something magical. And I want you to let it be magical. I want you to let it be unrealistic. And it doesn't matter if it's unrealistic, because it will lead you into... I live a very unrealistic life in many ways. Like some people would call a lot of the things that just kind of occur within me and around me magical, or at least unusual, very unusual. So things are possible that fall outside of the consensus reality norm of what the Matrix believes is possible, if only you dare to align yourself vibrationally to a state of consciousness that is not bound by man-made realism. And think about it, man-made realism is so transient and it's so flawed, and history proves this over and over again. Every 5 years, some product that's really good for you now is bad for you, or vice versa. And every 5 years, something else changes in science. And oh, we thought this was really true, and we even killed people for it, and we imprisoned them for it. But actually, sorry, it wasn't true. We were just full of hubris because we were scientific in our approach, right? No, you were detrimental. You were closed-minded. You were afraid. You weren't truly scientific. You were just scared. You were just conditioned. You were just blinded by the conditions of your present physical senses. And the world, what we call the world, is 0.0000000000000000001% of what life is. So when we think we know the world, when we think we understand how the world works, we only understand 0.01% of life. It's just this tiny little bandwidth of frequency that we perceive through these tiny little vehicles called the physical senses. With these 5 senses, we perceive a very, very tiny portion of what's possible of all that is life. And now we call this the world, the universe. This is the way that it is. And inside of this tiny 0.00001% box of my senses, I'm going to judge myself and others and be realistic about life and think that I know something. You don't. You have no clue about what life is until you begin to wake up. And even then, what you realize is that you don't know. And the more you realize, the more you know you don't know. And the more you realize, the more you know you don't know. And so it's an ever humbling process where you just begin to merge with the mystery. And God's love at the end of the day is all that matters. And this will produce the miracles on your behalf effortlessly without any kind of need for you to will anything into being. Okay? But an in-between step of this is for you to become established in a state of being that is resonating with, that is anchored in a feeling state, a believing state, where you can view your destiny, but from a timeless point of view. And so I'm going to explain more of this now. All of this so far has still been context. Except for the part where I ask you to tune into what your destiny is. That is part of the content of this session. That's part of the instruction. So right now, I want you to close your eyes. Become a kid again. Let go of all cynicism, all skepticism, all disbelief in infinite possibilities that you've adopted by being too focused on equating life with what you perceive through the physical senses, which is just the tiniest slice. It's just one parallel reality out of infinite in a timeless state. You've been limiting yourself voluntarily through conditioning and beliefs. Let all that go. Become a child once again. Become the child of God, the Son of God, the dreamer. The infinite kingdom is within you. And I want you to feel into the vibration, not specifics. The specifics don't matter too much. I want you to feel into the feeling, that intuitive, deep, instinctual knowing of why you are here, what is possible for you. And you don't have to accomplish it all, it doesn't matter. It's a never-ending dream. It's a scale. It's a spectrum. You can fulfill more of it if you want to, or less of it if you don't dare to. It doesn't matter. There's no judgment at the end of the day. It's just that you can stretch into greater possibilities. You can stretch into embracing a bigger portion of that spectrum. You can move up that spectrum of what you are here to fulfill. What is your main message to the world? This is one aspect of your blueprint. What is your main message to the world? If you were to depart from this plane tomorrow and you had to tell an 8-year-old child that you're very close to, maybe your own son or daughter, maybe your granddaughter or grandson, or your nephew or your cousin, and you had to tell them, you had to give them something, not even maybe verbally, could be verbally, but you had to transmit to them energetically a message that would be the guide for the rest of their life, that would be their guiding light, that would be their core value or principle for understanding life. What would you want them to know? What would you want them to feel about themselves? What would you want them to know about life and what's possible? Not out of your fear or concern, but out of your passion of creation, your passion of God, your passion of life. Out of your invincibility, what would you like them to remember always? What would you like all of humanity to know right now? If you had the microphone to 8 billion people right now for the next 5 minutes, what would you try to convey? And if you had no stage fright, let's just assume that. You had zero stage fright. You were absolutely fearless. What would you tell the world from the bottom of your heart? What's your message to deliver here? That's big part of your destiny, is what you're here to convey, what you're here to express, what you are here to demonstrate and exemplify, what you are here to communicate. It's a big portion, not for all of you maybe, but for most of you, it's a big aspect of your calling, of your blueprint, of your destiny. So feel into that. What's your message to the world? And then another strong aspect of it for most is, who or how do you want to be yourself? How do you want to carry yourself? What kind of clothes do you want to wear? How do you want to be perceived? What would amplify this message? What would be a demonstration of this message? What would you look like, feel like? Where would you be? Who would be around you? What would be your position in life? What would be your power of influence? And so forth. Things that can seem selfish or self-centered, but they are essentially part and parcel of your blueprint. And they are part of the effective means with which you can deliver this message to the masses. And you know it's part of your blueprint if it excites you. If when you think about that, if you think about that version of yourself, you feel more powerful. And again, realism will try to beat this out of you. False humility in society will try to beat this out of you. Don't. Keep dreaming, believe in yourself. You're not going to be a bad person for feeling powerful because of the clothes you wear or the position that you take on, or what you're communicating, or because 1,000 people are looking at you. None of that has to mean you're corrupt. None of that has to mean you're greedy for attention. It can just be a natural portion of your calling. So what position do you see yourself in? What kind of form do you have? How do you feel, most of all, most importantly? How do you feel about yourself, and how do others feel about you when they perceive you? That's another strong aspect of your calling, of your blueprint, of what calls you forth, of what determines what you actually truly desire at a deeper level. This is what's calling you forth into becoming. This is the timeless beingness calling you forth into a parallel, timeless picture of reality that looks different from the present one, that has a vibration to it, a frequency, a way of expressing that's different from your currently focused upon one, your currently conditioned one. And it's calling you forth with the power of desire because that's closer to who you really are as a soul. So what image of you on earth, what do you look like? What do you feel like? Who's around you? What do they see? What are you doing? But mostly the feeling state of all that. You don't have to know the specifics. You can, if you can, but you don't need to. These are all just symbols, just like Superman was a symbol for me. It wasn't the true thing. It was just a close representation. It was a symbolic vibrational representation of what I truly desired to become. So what's your superhero? What's your version of your own superhero of you? And think 10 to 20 years into your future to make it a little bit easier on the mind, like to dream bigger, because a lot can happen, my friends. A lot of parallel realities can be shifted into. A lot of timeline changes await you between now and 20 years from now. And the world at large is changing rapidly. And the things that are about to happen in the next 10 years, it will blow people's minds. And they will all turn towards that which they thus far have ridiculed, and will be preparing the grounds to host everyone. Who are you going to be in this trajectory, this exciting human transformation that's occurring right now? Be ahead of your time by about 20 years. Any further than that, and you'll be burned at the stake. Any less than that, and you won't be happy. So 10 to 20 years ahead of your time is, in most countries, a safe distance from what is. So you see, it's a combination of being a powerful, beautiful expression of who you know you can be, what's closest to your soul's expression. The love, the grace, the nobility, the style, the means of expressing, the way of communicating, the way of carrying yourself, feeling amazing about yourself, radiating in every room that you enter, dominating the room with love, warping space and time around you with love and confidence. Power, true power. The power of love, the power of God, the power of certainty, the power of knowing your power, your freedom. And then what, through that powerful speaker of your vehicle, that radiator, that beacon of your body and your mind and your vocal cords and your intellect and your love and your ability to have compassion, through those means, through those speakers, what is that message that you are conveying vibrationally and sometimes verbally when appropriate? And most importantly, through your example, demonstration. 20 years from now, how noble, how graceful, how powerful, how loving, how wise, how influential do you perceive yourself to be in delivering the message that you came here both to learn for yourself and to radiate out into the collective for all those who wish to learn from it as well? And what's the state of the world then? What's the collective you wish to live in? What kind of a collective consciousness, collective people, collective country or world do you wish to live in? What is a representation of your embodiment, of your true self? Can you picture the unity? Can you picture the freedom that's present, the smiles on everyone's faces as they walk around this mysterious manifestation, this hallucination inside of the one infinite, timeless creator consciousness? And they're just smiling at the mystery and the magic of it all, moment to moment, and greeting each other with open hearts and co-creating amazing possibilities that transcend space and time and Newtonian laws, seem to defy gravity, and actually do defy gravity and those kinds of laws. Start to bend everything to that creative potential that is inherent in loving life to the fullest. Schools all around, universities where this kind of stuff is taught from an early age onward. Totally different governmental systems. The earth being restored to its natural glory, its natural balance. People living in balance and harmony and joy and purity, knowing their power, therefore not having to distort anything around them to gain a sense of fulfillment. Just co-creating magical opportunities. Going off planet, exploring other planets, civilizations. Sound crazy now, but mark my words, within 10 years or less, this will be common knowledge. Everything's possible. So as you do this type of meditation, this type of contemplating, this type of feeling into your true blueprint, you will get a sense, some kind of a feeling frequency that you can now use as a coordinate to tune your state of consciousness, your radio to, your attention to, your tuning fork to. You got to know what you're tuning to. If you don't have any feeling of it, how are you going to be tuning to it? But if you have even the slightest feeling of your destiny, of what's possible, of how you would like to be, how you'd love to be, if you can tap into that frequency, and now zoom out to the center of the universe, this center of the wheel of time and space, this timeless center, and realize that 20 years from now, the picture you're having of yourself 20 years from what you call now, 20 years from now is actually also now. It's not 20 years from now. No such thing exists. You were simply tuning into a parallel reality where that's already the case. And your mind projects that it might take 20 years to get there. But the truth of it is, my friends, it already exists. So tap into yourself 20 years from now as if it is happening in front of your face right now, in front of your soul right now. Knowing that 20 years from now is actually already happened. It already exists. And from this vantage point, you have the ability to even place it in your past. You can place the destiny fulfilled state of you 20 years from now. And you can place it 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, you had this feeling of your total earthly destiny being completely fulfilled. Like, I am complete. That happened. That exciting reality, that realization, that total fulfillment happened 2 weeks ago. 20 years from now happened 2 weeks ago from your soul's point of view, from your consciousness's point of view. Feel that. Feel the power of your destiny fulfilled. Feel the certainty that what you're imagining could happen over the next 20 years already happened and accomplished itself. It completed itself 2 weeks ago. And now you're just in overtime. Just extra party time, extra creation time. But that which you felt you were born to be, and that world which you were here to shepherd into being and perceive and touch with your senses and interact with and be excited about and celebrate, that celebratory pinnacle zenith moment of your life occurred 2 weeks ago in that timeless state. It is certain. It already exists. It doesn't depend on your actions. It doesn't depend on your doubts and your evolution. It already exists. Your destiny fulfilled is already the case. You already accomplished your destiny, my friend. Feel that. Feel that from that timeless soul point of view. You already fulfilled your destiny. So it's done. Now I want you to simply rest in this timeless state of feeling how it is done, feeling how the celebration is eternal. The celebration is timeless. The certainty and the confidence is timeless. And so now what happens on a physical level is you're just sitting in the theater watching the movie unfold, already knowing how it's going to end. You may not know every twist and turn, but that's why it's still exciting to watch your own movie. It's fun. Oh, what's going to happen now? Who's going to accuse me now? What's going to happen then? And you're sitting in the theater knowing your destiny is already fulfilled, knowing the world you're here to shepherd into being around you has already been accomplished. Your destiny has succeeded. And so from the successful state of knowing the end of the movie is all good and well and epic and beautiful, from that state of conviction, you simply sit in on your own life's movie playing itself out, and you allow yourself to be surprised and delighted at every turn. Oh, cool, I never thought this would happen, and that would lead to my destiny fulfilled. How exciting. But somehow it will. It must, because I know the end. So you live in the end, vibrationally, in your confidence. You live in the state where your destiny is completely accomplished, and you're the greatest success story in your soul's hope ever. And you don't worry about what's happening now. It doesn't matter what it looks like now. It's part of this exciting mini-series on HBO called Your Life. And it just goes on for another 20 years. But so what? I mean, that's exciting. You already know where it's going to lead. So you're just excited to see the twists and turns and the lessons that you learn along the way. But you live in the end, vibrationally, in your conviction. You have faith in the end. And this gives you a sense of power and invincibility that allows you to sit in on your life and love the very people and the very things that occur that you would otherwise label as disastrous or detrimental, or meaning that your destiny won't be fulfilled, or meaning that you cannot be who you are, or meaning that somehow you're not perfect, or you're not good enough. But now, knowing that your destiny is fulfilled, approaching it from a timeless state of conviction, living in the end of your destiny fulfilled state. Now you're just simply watching the movie of your life unfold with a confidence that's transcendental, and when you're free, love is automatic. So, and in this sense, you're contacting God's love, and you're allowing yourself to radiate God's love, because you're also abiding in a powerful state where you know that your individuated desires that are calling you forth into what you want to become, which is who you truly already are in a timeless state. You just want the picture to match the truth that you already know is true. So you live in that end picture, you live in that end conviction. And because of that powerful freedom, it's so much easier to maintain being an empty vessel for God's love to shine upon everyone, enemies included. You will see people like they're cute, naked creatures in your classroom. You know, there's exercise. If you have stage fright, to picture everybody naked. It's a little bit like that, except you see people as just where they're at, and they don't know any better. And because they don't sway you from who you know you are, and that you know all things will turn out more than all right in the end. You're already in the celebratory state internally. And because you're in that conviction and that certainty, it's a knowing. You know that 20 years from now has already happened. From that soul level, that's actually the truth. It's not just imagination. Your destiny is already fulfilled because creation is complete. You're just here watching the linear unfoldment. So whatever happens, none of it means that things are not going to happen the way they should. Everything means it's all somehow mysteriously leading towards the end. God's ways work in mysterious ways. God works in mysterious ways. You got to be open to that. You got to be, fuck, this looks not so pleasant. This looks not so successful. But if you stay in the end, if you know that your destiny has fulfilled itself because you've seen it, because you know it, then it changes your relationship to the ups and downs of life and the challenges. And they become surprises. And they become opportunities to love, opportunities to share God's love, opportunities to be of service to others. Because the only reason anyone would ever try to stand in your way, your destiny's way, is only to learn your lesson and to evoke in you the power to change the world through service to others, through God's love. If you maintain your confidence that your individual desires will always accomplish themselves and are in fact already done, then you can be available in the meantime in this linear timeline show of your own movie, watching your own movie. Fun, what's happening now? This allows you to be available to see people where they're at and love them from this confident state where they cannot affect your confidence. We only fight back when we believe that what they're saying somehow truly applies to us. But when it doesn't, When you really see that someone doing something to you or saying something to you or trying to stand in the way of your destiny, when you really see that they could not ever, they have no power in your destiny, because you've already seen it, your destiny is already fulfilled. So what could they do? Nothing. They can just scream and shout and try to convince you. But if you stay convinced of what's true within yourself, then it enables you to love your enemies. In fact, you won't see them as enemies. You'll see them as children that are under your care. And you'll do your best to provide a balanced response or no response or just love. Sometimes a correction is in place. Sometimes you got to play a role to get a message across. Nevertheless, internally, there's nothing but love. But you cannot maintain that if you're not confident that your desires will be fulfilled no matter what, that your destiny is certain no matter what. So if you come from that state of certainty, then you're free in the meantime to love every little scene in between now and now. You don't have to wait for your destiny fulfilled anymore. You don't have to be impatient or anxious. You can savor and nourish every little scene in between and give it your best and deliver your message even more fully, because you're no longer worried about anything being an obstacle. There are no obstacles between now and 2 weeks ago. How could anything happening tomorrow stand in between now and what's already accomplished 2 weeks ago? Your destiny completed itself 2 weeks ago. So how can anything anybody does tomorrow cancel that out or stand in the way of that? It's impossible. So why respond with hatred to hatred when you can simply see that people are desiring the same power that you have access to? And they don't like the fact, perhaps, that you're demonstrating that you already have access to that. It triggers every lack belief in their system, and it makes them feel worse about themselves for a little while. And they reject it, and they ridicule it, and they try to stand in its way. Love anyway, because you know you're inconquerable. The only time you're ever defeated is when you accept defeat as a concept. Only you can say, yes, this scene in my movie really means I'm screwed. This scene really means it's not going well. Only you can say that. Nobody can say that for you. Nobody. Not Donald Trump, not Obama, not the Queen of England, not me. Nobody can say this for you. Only you. Not your parents, not your spouse, not your kids. Nobody, not your friends, nor all of them at the same time. Nobody can tell you what you've accomplished from a timeless point of view. It's all up to you. What do you want to be attuned to? When you're attuned to something powerful that your soul agrees with, you feel great. You feel overwhelmingly good. And this bliss will overflow as an availability to love upon those who get triggered by the love that they desire when they see it for the first time. Does this make sense? And there's such a thing as spiritual jealousy, which you might encounter as you raise your vibration. It's a very weird phenomenon, but it is real. So it doesn't matter. Like I'm saying this because the higher you vibrate, the more you're going to vibrate in this conviction, the more you're going to be creating, for the most part, just very loving and kind interactions. But there's going to be people that are going to be spiritually jealous of you. They don't know that this is what's happening, but I want you to know what's happening so that you can stay steadfast in your own frequency and you can continue to love them to the best of your ability. Of course, also love yourself, set your boundaries if you need to, but do keep an open heart as much as you can. They just want what you want, what you have. And you can offer it to them by staying steadfast, by not reacting, by not exacerbating the hatred or the jealousy. Everything that's not true will ultimately realize it's not true. It will fall apart. You just stay true, and the world will shape up. Wonderful. I'm going to ask you to bask in this for a bit, to meditate on this for a bit more. Just tap into that feeling. Again, don't make it too specific unless you have specific images. That's fine. Just the feeling. You want to have the vibrational coordinates in your consciousness. You want to be able to tune into it with your imagination. What it feels like when you are that version of you that you know in the depths of your being are already calling you forth, that already exists vibrationally. It's just, don't worry about what the picture looks like right now of your life. You may judge it as not being who you are. But if you stop judging that and just tune to the vibration of who you already are at your highest level, at your highest destiny fulfilled state, then you are that now, regardless of what you're wearing, regardless of what room you're in, regardless of your bank account, regardless of how the people see you, regardless of what country you live in. It doesn't matter. It's about being in that state, and the state will materialize a different parallel reality. It will shift you into a different parallel reality over what you perceive to be time, but it's not. It's an adjustment phase of change, but it's not time. The moment you say you are who you are, that's who you are in that moment, regardless of what shows up in your physical environment, regardless of how people respond to you. That's just a test. That's just the echo of your old beliefs. The moment you decree that I am the man I wish to be, I am the woman I wish to be, I am the Superman, the Superwoman I wish to be, I am the message I wish to share and convey, I am the message I want to give to that child, I am the message I want to give to that world, and that's who I am. The moment you decree this, the moment you decide and determine this, it is the truth, and the universe will begin to respond to this. The mechanics, the laws of the universe will respond to this, I promise. It has to. There is no other operant power in this universe that activates the laws besides your state of consciousness. So live in the end state of your destiny fulfilled as if it already happened 2 weeks ago. 20 years from now, place it 2 weeks into your past and see how you feel, how accomplished, how at peace. After such a great, fantastic celebratory weekend where everyone was joining you in this celebration. It was a celebration for all people. Your destiny fulfilled meant celebration for all beings on planet Earth. For all generations to come, a monumental shift in human development. More epic than anyone could have ever imagined. And if you rest in that state of fulfillment, if you learn to feel the vibration of that, the coordinates, then you can remember it throughout the day, and you can be convinced, you can decree, you can decide that that's the truth. No matter what shows up right now, none of that is true. Be highly unrealistic in the eyes of others, and be extremely realistic in the eyes of yourself. Okay? Wonderful. I'll see you guys again in about 3.5 hours, I think, roughly. I'll take some questions during that session, and I'll do another guided meditation at the end of that. Much love and enjoy. See you soon.